Hey guys, I just wanted to give you my review of the first three episodes of Once Upon a Time from season 6. And first episode starts off with just continuing from where the season finale of season 5 left off, in which maybe there's a little bit of time afterwards, but basically Hook and Emma are about to have their first love scene, but it's interrupted when a dirigible from the Land of Untold Stories arrives, and that's when they find out from Hyde that Mr. Gold, Rumpelstiltskin, basically gave him control of the town in order to get his help in trying to wake up Belle. And he basically goes to, I think it's called the Temple of it's basically the Temple of Morpheus or something. And basically, Mr. Gold goes into this like cursed sleeper's dream, Belle's dream, and says that he only has a certain amount of time to wake her up, and so he tries to recreate the scene, He tries to recreate the scene in which they first fell in love, just so he won't be stuck in limbo. But Belle starts having memories of realizing that she's lived through this before, and starts having memories of it. And it turns out Morpheus is basically, in the dream sequence, an adult version of Gold and Belle's unborn child, and it was warning her that, you can't trust Gold, you can't go through too much heartbreak, you can't go through the same heartbreak as before, Gold's never going to change, that he has to stay away from him. And just really says only true love's kiss can wake her up. I was kind of grossed out because I thought, oh my god, they were going to do like a lip lock or something, and just do something that would kind of, give the Lannisters on Game of Thrones a run for their money. But luckily, he just gave her a kiss on the forehead, which woke her up from her sleep, and they returned to Storybrooke, although Belle said that he didn't want him anything to do with Gold, and he respected her wishes. And meanwhile, Emma was having visions as well as tremors of herself fighting a hooded figure and getting impaled with a sword. And because of that, she didn't tell her friends and family what they're about. So, those tremors and visions come up when they're trying to use an electrical device to subdue Mr. Hyde, and almost botches the operation, but they still manage to take Hyde into custody. But Hyde rants that he knows about Emma's tremors, so when Hyde's in prison, Emma tries to interrogate Hyde, and it leads to her going on a vision quest in which she learns that even though all the saviors have the job of providing happy endings to all the other fairy tale characters, the saviors themselves don't get their own happy endings, which is why at the beginning of the episode we have Aladdin, who's kind of in this traumatized, like, unhinged state, and when Jafar finds him, he just finds that it's leaving him in that state is a satisfying enough revenge for him. If and when they're going to come back, I don't know. And then with Regina, she gets pissed at Zelena for losing a keepsake that he got from Robin for his death. And you would think, with them remembering how their childhood memories of first meeting and bonding as sisters, their memories being restored, and making peace with their mother and watching them go on to the afterlife, that things would go, there would be, and with Zelena helping turn against Hades and killing him, that they would be on better terms, but they're not. Regina still resents and blames Zelena because of her involvement with Hades, is what led to Robin being killed, and Zelena is pissed because Regina went to Emma and Snow White and those guys first. Were going to her own flesh and blood, and she hates that she got rid of her dark side, the evil queen, because Zelena complains it removed the part of Regina that Zelena could relate the most to. and which is why, poetically enough, Regina shows up at Zelina's house. The evil queen shows up at Zelina's house, wanting to have like an apple martini, and which leads to the second episode in which the evil queen convinces Zelina to go to, I guess, like a gravesite where they keep where it's like it can only be accessed by, blood magic, and she creates the same curse. She creates the same like protection spell that trapped everybody in Storybrooke there once before, when the evil queen and the Regina were one and the same, and they were in their like amnesic state and didn't know about their past, and they were cursed and whatnot. And at the same time, they'll have to deal with the return of, in the second episode, the return of the Count of Monte Cristo, who was able to, after being in prison and his wife being murdered, he started killing the people who were involved in his wife's murder and his imprisonment. But then the evil queen hired him under the condition that he would kill Snow White and Prince Charming, and then evil queen would give her a list, at least in the flashbacks in the Enchanted Forest, that he would give, the Count would get the list of the people involved in ruining his life. Now, he ended up being like a sole survivor, like kind of going undercover of this like ravaged village by the evil queen, and being taken in by Snow White and Prince Charming as their wine steward. And when he was going to serve them poisoned wine, he ended up having second thoughts about going through with the plot, because he met a woman who reminded him of his late wife, and when he tried to back out of the plot, Rumpelstiltskin showed up, who said he needed Prince Charming and Snow White alive. The evil queen wanted them both dead, and so he strong arms the Count into going to the land of untold stories, because he ends up poisoning the woman with his own magic, and so by going to the land of untold stories, he can prolong her death as long as he remains there. Since they both escaped, the woman's now dead, and Regina finds her body, and that's when she encounters the evil queen and realizes that she's back, and she's the one. And because she has the Count's heart, she still sends the Count after Snow White and Prince Charming, and it leads to this like fight at the docks, in which Regina tries to save the Count and try to get him off this path of vengeance, and they both get into the sword fight, and Regina is forced to kill the Count in order to save Prince Charming and Snow White's lives. And then when the evil queen shows up, Regina realizes that she set the whole thing up, that she would like engineer all the events so that Regina would kill a Count, and Regina would try to get under her skin and prove that there's still darkness in her, and she can still be corrupted, even though now they're both like separate beings. And she says that she's going to be able to tear their family apart. And she starts planting the seeds by getting a trinket from Rumpelstiltskin, which under the condition that she got the trinket as long as she doesn't harm Belle and Gold's unborn child. And when the evil queen confronts Prince Charming about his dad's death, about how it was an accident, she questions, "How do you know it was an accident?" And that's when she disappears. The third episode goes into the backstory of Cinderella, in which you find out that even though she was able to make it to the ball, and Rumpelstiltskin was the one, instead of a fairy godmother, was the one who was able to give her the dress and the glass slippers, and turn Gus, the mouse that lived with mouse, into, I guess, like her chauffeur, for lack of better terms. And he was able to dance with the prince and met Snow White at that same ball. But then she saw her talking to one of her stepsisters, and the evil stepmother said that, oh, she's not gonna, like, oh, he's not gonna marry you. She's gonna, this prince is gonna marry your sister. And so she ran off, and it wasn't like, oh, she had to leave by midnight. She just ran off. She just ran home from the ball hurt, and so left the glass slipper behind, thinking that she was never gonna be with him. And it turns out that one of this, and it just as I like the tradition they have when they try to flip the script and say, like, oh, you don't know the whole. It's not the traditional story fairy tale that you knew. It turns out like one of the stepsisters was just putting on an act, that she was only acting malicious and treated Cinderella like crap just to keep up appearances with their evil stepmother, because she was in love with somebody of lower class from the prince's kingdom, and that they were gonna get married and run away together. And she apologized for treating Cinderella like crap. But then the evil stepmother finds out what's happening, and she says she's going to destroy the other glass slippers, and under the threat that if she does, then the prince will never find out that she's the one that he danced with at the ball. And so she cracks and basically rats out her stepsister to where they're supposed to be meeting, how they're going to run away to where they're supposed to be meeting. But she destroys the glass slipper anyway. She goes to warn her stepsister, but the evil stepmother shows up, knocks the, I think it was like a horseman or something like that, unconscious. I don't know if it was a horseman or something. So the stepsister's name is Clorinda, and she's fallen in love with the prince's footman, and basically the footman is knocked unconscious by Lady Tremaine, the evil stepmother, and she drags herself and Clorinda off to the land that went to its stories, because she feels like it was unfair that she invested all of her time into trying to be part of royalty and got nothing. So, and at first, when Cinderella takes her husband's gun, they think she's going to try to kill Clorinda, but she's actually going to try to save her from their evil stepmother. But she's lured into a trap by both Clorinda and the evil stepmother, and Lady Tremaine turns out the footman was also in Storybrooke, because he had a pumpkin farm there, because that's where they're originally going to run off to and set up their own farm. And so eventually the evil stepmother stabs Cinderella, and Emma thinks she's not going to be able to heal her, but then with a pep talk from Henry, she's able to save her life. And then Lady Tremaine's taken into custody, and she has to do the community service by picking up trash under Grumpy, one of the dwarves' supervision. And during this time, Emma's been seeing a therapist about her visions. It was basically the cricket, who's now taking the form of I think it was Arthur, taking the form of a therapist, and she's been worried about, that the person in her vision might be Regina, not the evil queen, because of how the evil queen plans to corrupt, drive cracks in the family and friends, and corrupt Regina. And also worried about how, but the cricket convinces Emma that even though she might not get a happy ending, it's better to, enjoy life while while it lasts and make the best of it. And so it it leads to her asking Hook to move in with her, and that's pretty much like the first three episodes in a nutshell. But the evil queen still has plans. She's the one who breaks hide out of prison by the end of the third episode, and time will tell like what their plans are for the town. And overall, I kind of like this whole where the I kind of like this whole like untold story stuff. At first, I wasn't sure if I was gonna like it as much as the Dark Swan and the underworld storylines, but it's been able to be compelling without being like too like dark and grim like season 5. So I like the direction this season's been going in so far. So what do you guys think of the first 3 episodes? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. If you like this video, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.